Hello, my name is Greg Gunther from Greg Gunther & Associates. What I'd like to do is to introduce you to a number of concepts and tools that you can use in your own business to help you with some of your own planning and implementation. I find them handy tools to just have little, and they're quite simple tools that you can use in your own businesses. Before I do any of that though, what I'd like to do is just to first of all introduce the concept of business excellence. And what we've been able to basically come up with, and reasonably widely accepted these days, is that there are 5 key prerequisites that we need to be focused on in our businesses if we're going to strive towards this concept of business excellence. The first concept that we need to first of all get our heads around and minds around is this concept of shared strategic direction. Now, there's a couple of key words in there that are quite important to understand. The first one really is this concept of direction. One of the things that I find when I'm working with people, and particularly in their businesses, is this the direction of the business itself tends to be not well understood. And one of the things I like to do when I'm first of all talking or working with a business is to talk to a number of the stakeholders involved in that business. So that can be people like employees, obviously owners, but also things like people like their suppliers and their customers. And I find often there's a lot of greyness, or there's a bit of vagueness around just what it is that the business is actually striving to achieve. So there's a bit of lack of direction there. The other important concept that links closely with that is this concept of being shared, or alignment, if you like, around our direction. It's important that we're all rowing in the same direction. But again, when I'm talking to the number of different stakeholders involved, one of the things that I find is that it's actually not well understood. And often people are there perhaps doing what they do well in their little cocoon or their section of the business, but how well it is understood that the overall direction of the business is not necessarily all that well shared. The next important concept for us to consider when we're thinking about this is processes. One of the things that is quite important for us to understand is that in a business we have our inputs, and through a series of processes we derive outputs, hopefully for our customer base or external business environment. But the thing to understand is that everything happens in our business actually happens through processes. And many of those processes are key, and many of them are very repetitive. But what we don't well understand is exactly what those processes are, and we find ourselves actually often repeating stuff, essentially reinventing the wheel almost every time we actually go to approach something. So it's important that with process that we design our processes so that we actually have them documented and we actually understand what the processes are. And the Japanese actually made this very famous with this concept of Kaizen, or continuous improvement, in the post-war years. What they understood was that everything happens through processes, and they really drew down quite deeply into their businesses and understand what all those processes were. Deming, the American, quite a famous American in the post-war years, helped a lot of Japanese in that post-war era. And he went and actually developed this concept with them very, very successfully, and it still works with them today. So process design, but not just the design, it's actually also the improvement. And one of the things that I like to do when I'm working with businesses is actually, first of all, understand what our processes are, and that starts at the right top level of the business. What is our process map of our entire business? But then also understand where it is in that process map that we might actually be able to derive some improvement. And out of that improvement can often come things like competitive edge, efficiencies and the like. If we've got those concepts working, the next thing that we need to understand, the third prerequisite, is that we need to then know through measurement how well it is that we're going. So we need to actually understand what are our key performance indicators, and we need to measure those on a regular basis so that we can actually understand, first of all, whether our processes are actually working well, but also whether or not we're heading in the right direction in terms of our consistently with our strategic direction. So KPIs become very important. So that's performance measurement. The fourth prerequisite that we need to understand is this concept of knowledge. Because what actually is happening once we've actually taken ourselves through these processes in our business is that we've created some very valuable knowledge in our business. So it's important that we are able to capture that knowledge and in such a way that we can actually then take it and leverage that. And that's often referred to in business as our IP. It's the sort of thing that actually makes us different in our operating environment to anybody else. And the better we understand that and the better we are able to leverage that, the more successful we'll be with that. But of course, above all of this, then comes this concept of leadership. And I have to say, one of my own observations, and it's a personal observation when I'm working with businesses, is that we tend to still operate in a paradigm of what I call management. Leadership is quite different to management. Management for me is about the implementation of a lot of the stuff that we design and put into our businesses. Leadership, though, is actually above all of that, and it's really this concept of actually leading or taking our businesses forward into the future. And leadership is one of those skills that I don't see a lot of, and I think a lot of our small business today is sadly lacking in that particular area. And of course, because we are operating in a time of change, leadership is designed to take us through that time of change, because there's a lot of skills that we need to actually help us into that. So that's the 5 prerequisites to business excellence. What I'd like to do in the next series of videos that you can see is to actually take you through inside some of these particular prerequisites, but with some specific tools that you can use in your business and as a takeaway for you and use and hopefully implement into your business and help you start to strive towards some of those concepts.